the camera as the men walked down the ramp into the NASA van, which would take them to Pad 39A. I jostled with other photographers to get a clear view. This walkout by the Apollo 11 crew lasted only a couple minutes, but it was an emotional high point of the trip for me. I had been privileged to witness close up the last steps on Earth of the first men who would land on the moon. It was a sight I would never forget. After the walkout, we went at dawn to the press site, a series of bleachers not too far from Nevada. I climbed to the top of the bleachers and took a picture of Pad 39A and of all the photographers setting up their cameras along the shore of the water. This is what the press site looked like that morning. There were hundreds of journalists there on these bleachers, as well as television cameras and things like that. However, Mark and I decided to watch the launch from the VIP site, which was located on the other side of the VAB. We took a long walk there with our press badges prominently displayed to security personnel. At the VIP site, there were 2 rows of bleachers for the invited dignitaries. They ranged from President Johnson to former NASA Administrator Jim Webb to Peace Corps Director Sergeant Shriver and to Army Chief of Staff William Westmoreland were among the dignitaries there. NASA had even invited some entertainment figures, and this, is Johnny Carson and his sidekick Ed McMahon, who were at the Apollo 11 launch. Yes. So we stood on the grassy area in front of the VIP stand and watched as the countdown progressed. It was a bright sunny morning. Precisely at 9:32 a.m., which had been the scheduled launch time for months, there was a bright dot at the base of the Saturn V, which was 3.5 miles away. This was the closest that you could approach the rocket because in case of an explosion, if you were any closer, you had a high probability of dying. Then huge flames of smoke shot out from both sides of the rocket. The rocket just seemed to sit there for several seconds. It was not like the space shuttle, which went off quickly. It just sat there, and you couldn't hear it. But then, as it started to rise towards clearing the tower, the sound began to hit you. And you could visibly and actually feel the launch. The sound was buffeting your chest, hitting your chest. It was a physical sensation that's hard to describe. And the sound was so loud, it was like dozens of trains going. It was really the loudest sound that I've ever heard outside, before or since then. Yes, that's correct. It was very loud. So as the rocket cleared the tower and rose into the blue sky, it began to gain speed. The sound started to decrease, and eventually all I could see was a bright dot in the wispy clouds. The launch had been spectacular, way beyond my expectations. It began to sink into me how actually lucky we had been. So many launches had to be delayed for hours. So many launches had been scrubbed for days. I had only a week in Florida, and if there would have been more than 1 2-day single hold, we would not have been able to see it. As it was, Apollo 11 lifted off precisely on time at 9:32 on July 16, 1969, the time that was scheduled for weeks and weeks in advance. We felt ourselves truly blessed. After the launch, I started to work on my story for the next day's Michigan Daily and other college papers. Apollo 11 heads for the moon after a perfect launch was the headline. And I was very proud of the byline by David Chudwin, special to the Daily, Cape Kennedy. I stayed at the Cape for the flight to the moon and the landing, but that whole part is a story for another day and also for the book I'm writing. The next time I encountered the Apollo 11 crew was the month after the moon voyage. On October 13, 1969, they visited Chicago as part of a cross-country tour. When flashing my NASA press credentials, I ran along the first part of the route on Michigan Avenue with a very large ticker tape parade. The three men were greeted by tens of thousands of cheering onlookers. Here's the crew in front of the Chicago Water Tower. Mike Collins waved to the people on the roofs and in the windows. Here, Buzz Aldrin and Mike Collins are in front of the Chicago Tribune building. And finally, Neil Armstrong points to the sky in front of the now demolished Sun-Times building. It was exciting to see them back on Earth just 3 weeks after their return from the moon. In response to my query, I got a letter in the mail from the American Red Cross Youth Journal offering to pay me $125 for an article about my coverage. That may not seem much, but it's $811 in current dollars. I wrote an article about our future in space using an edited transcript of my conversation with Dr. Miller. It appeared in the November 1969 issue of the American Red Cross Youth Journal. Over the last 47 years, my passion for space has continued unabated. Through the years, I've had the opportunity to meet many of the people who made Apollo 11 such a success, some of whom are here at Spacefest 7, including Mike Collins, who was the command module pilot, Jim Lovell, who was the backup commander, and Fred Hayes, who was the backup LMP pilot, as well as flight directors Lynn Lunny and Jerry Griffin. I'm well into writing a book about my Apollo 11 experiences. I believe that those of us in the Apollo generation who are eyewitnesses to history have an obligation to explain what it was like at the time of Apollo. Covering Apollo was one of the high points of my life, and I've tried to summarize the lessons I've learned from the experience. First of all is be lucky, be in the right place at the right time. Had I been a few years younger or a few years older, I wouldn't have been able to have had this experience. Secondly, aim high, set difficult but achievable goals. We wanted to get NASA press credentials. We know it would be hard, but we persisted. And that goes along with perseverance. Don't give up. We hit a brick wall with NASA, but eventually we were able to prevail. The next one is plan ahead. Chris Hadfield, in his wonderful book about being an astronaut in life, has a chapter entitled Sweat the Small Stuff. And in order to be successful, this is important to do. We did a lot of extensive planning before our trip down to Florida, and this paid off. The corollary to that is be organized. The key to success is organization. We got a lot done in the 2.5 days before the launch, and we wouldn't have been able to do that with organization. Work hard is obvious. We were going from dawn until midnight every day we were down there. But the most important thing is have fun. Life is a journey, not a destination. So while it's important to set high goals, you need to have fun along the way, and we had quite a ride. And then finally, a few acknowledgments. Spacefest is an inspiring gathering of the space community. No two civilians have been more responsible for that sense of community than Robert Perlman of Collect Space and Emily Carney of Space Hipsters. I salute both of them. Spacefest 7 would not be possible without Sally and Tim Poor for their brilliant idea of Spacefest and for organizing it so well these last 7 times. I'm particularly in awe of Kim Poor, who has done so much, so bravely fighting a crippling neurologic illness. I would like to finally thank my own backup crew, my wife Claudia, my son Adam, and my daughter and PowerPoint guru Stacy. Love you. So I'd like to thank you very much for attending this last talk, and I'll be available outside if you have any questions. Thank you much.